Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Smart Buildings Design Workshop. This is week 3. This is our last and final week of the workshop. My name is Anup Mohan. I'm with Distech Controls. I have Marcello Luisi from Tridium with us today, who is going to take the last week and walk us through the Niagara system and how to specify and how to design for it. I just want to thank all of you for being here 3 weeks. We've come through BAS, we've come through IoT platforms, blinds, lights, and whatnot, and we're concluding with the enterprise Tridium Niagara system and signing off from there. So if you haven't heard already, the whole workshop will give you 3 PDF credits. Your certificates will be mailed to you if you've already ticked the box when you registered. And Pi New York will be notified of your attendance as well. So with that being said, I'll be here in the background, just helping things along. Do put in your questions whenever you have them. Marcello and I will try to answer them as we go along. If we don't get to your question, we will definitely get back to you after the session is over via email and clarify at the time. So I just want to thank our producer, LJ, Laura Jane, who sits out in Montreal. She's the force behind all good things that we do here from an event standpoint. And with that said, Marcello, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Anup. Appreciate it. And thank you and the team at Distech, including LJ and the marketing team, for putting this all together. We're certainly excited to be part of the Smart Building Design Series here with Distech. And as a longtime Tridium partner with us, we're happy to talk today about Niagara Open Systems. And with the 30 minutes we got today, I think we'll just hop right in and get going, because we got a lot to cover in the next couple days. But let me just take control of the screen here real quick. Okay, just get a confirmation you can see my screen.
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect, okay. So we are going to talk about Niagara Open Systems today, and really just real quick, we want to go over an agenda, and over the next couple days, day 1 today, we're going to kind of lay the foundation and just talk about the measurable criteria that's out there for open systems. So as technology continues to change and presents more and more devices and sensors in the built space, we're going to talk about how that applies to designing an open system and the technology to support that BAS architecture. And then tomorrow, as we get into day 2, once we lay that foundation down today, we're going to talk about from the why to the how. So we're going to talk about how to specify a Niagara Open System and your design, and then also go over some case studies that will show the value of an open system and why some of these partners decided to go down this road. So as we get started here, I just want to take a minute and talk about, what does open really mean? This is a word that gets tossed around a lot, and it's kind of has a lot of meanings. Most commonly gets associated with an open backnet system. So we're going to talk about open protocols and what that means in the whole scheme of an open system. We'll also talk about connectivity and all the different types of devices and different systems that are out there, and how that kind of comes together in this open environment. We'll also talk about open APIs. I know this was something that was touched upon in some of the other sessions during this series. It's a very important part about where we're going and how this all applies to what's being done today. So we're going to dig into APIs a little bit. Then we also want to talk about the open side, the open business side of things, which is open availability. So that's a big component that I think gets overlooked every once in a while. So we certainly want to touch on that as we start to dig into this. And then we're going to start out today by talking about what it means to be open and secure. So really, if you want to be open, you have to be secure. Typically in the past, people that were hacking systems, they were looking more towards hacking emails or maybe a bank account, but all that with all the data that goes on in a building now is starting to slide to the building automation system. So there's certain areas that we need to be informed about. So this is really just more to familiarize you with the many different types of IT security standards and certifications that are out there. And I just want you to realize that each one of these, while it's important, it really depends on the industry that you're working in. And this is just more to kind of make you aware of the different types of security certifications that are out there. So if you're working with a military or a Department of Defense type project, you want to be familiar with RMF. And if you've been around for a while, you've heard the term DIACAP. That's what it used to be. It's now transitioned to RMF. So the government's always looking at ways to strengthen requirements, and they're always kind of checking their cybersecurity standards and postures. So RMF is the latest certification that you want to be familiar with as you take a look at these systems. PCI, this is for any application where you would swipe a credit card. So think of like a convenience store, gas station, maybe even retail. There's certain types of rules and criteria that need to be followed for those types of systems. So just be familiar that PCI is out there. Then you want to also look at SSL or TLS, or security in a browser. So for instance, when you pop open a web page and you type in HTTP, or now you'll realize that, or may recognize that HTTPS is the standard that you put down. So that's HTTP secure. As we go through open systems and we talk about using a web browser as an interface, this is an important standard to be aware of, HTTPS. And FIPS 140.2, just to touch on that, that's another federal government certification on the business side. So if you do any projects with the GSA, you just want to be familiar with this compliance and get ready for that. So another piece that we don't always talk about is something called encryption. So just a quick overview of that. When information leaves a browser, sensitive information like a password, it might get encrypted. So what does that mean? What happens is it turns that piece of information into a code that's only readable on the receiving end of that message. So if that message were intercepted at some point, you wouldn't be able to pull out the sensitive information there. And the reason we bring that up, it's been around for a lot of years in the government, and it's really widely accepted in corporations now. So you have to be careful and cognizant about this, because we're just starting to see this in the VAS world, and a lot of protocols that exist out there now are not encrypted. So just keep that in mind as you talk to IT groups as you design these systems. And then real quick, the Department of Homeland Security started a cybersecurity emergency response team. So ICS CERT, what they do is they monitor hackers and cybersecurity in industrial systems. So think of like a SCADA system in a nuclear power plant or an oil refinery. So really most manufacturers that you'll deal with are part of this group, and they're working together with Homeland Security to make sure these applications are secure. But when you specify an open system, make sure that your manufacturer is working with this group. And then to kind of wrap up security, you want to think about adding a security dashboard when you're laying out or designing the system. So something that gives a good security posture of your network, so you can see all the devices that are there, not only within a building, or also just kind of expanding out to an enterprise. Really kind of take a look at this. There's features that are out there now that you can be using. It's a good way to kind of drill down into issues that pop up. It's a good way to make sure that you're viewing the full posture of this network. So just something that needs to be brought up as we kind of go along and talk about security. So let's get into device connectivity now. And this is a really important part of what it means to design an open system. So really the most important thing that we want to pull from this is that one protocol is never going to be an open system. It's one component of the greater system. So in the BAS industry, if you have BACnet or LawnWorks, at one time it could have been considered open. It's an open protocol, but you have many other protocols that would go into a project, right? So SNMP for computers, more and more protocols are coming out, not only in VMS, but also in IoT. You're likely dealing with multiple protocols like Modbus for a power generator. You might have BACnet IP and a VAV controller. You might be using MQTT as a cloud connector. So again, just really want to drill down that one protocol is never going to be an open system. So another thing you want to look at when you're looking at devices and connecting is, are they wired? Are they wireless? So a lot of HVAC controls that are out there now, they might be a twisted pair over a daisy chain, but a lot of this is moving more towards wireless. So you got, you know, wireless controls, you have wireless sensors out in space, maybe a sensor that communicates via Bluetooth or an Ocean or Zigbee. And in lighting, wireless has been around for a long time, as you know, Chase talked about in one of our earlier sessions. So just want to be aware of the different types of devices that are out there as we talk about connecting. And then, you know, IP is becoming a real big part of what we talk about these days. You know, HVAC controllers are almost all IP now, or there's an IP offering. And we're looking at that flat architecture. So you could have thousands of IP addresses across a building. And this is just something that we need to be conscious of when we're talking about connecting things. And finally, we want to talk about systems, right? So legacy and proprietary systems that may exist in a building already. You want to be able to bring in that information from the system. You want to be able to connect to those. So, you know, this is another important thing that we have to consider, especially in retrofit jobs. So to be an open system, you got to be able to communicate with multiple protocols, systems, and devices. So kind of expanding on that, let's talk about integration and how that adds value to your design. So, you know, we already talked about there's more and more protocols. A lot of industries are starting to converge. Anoop talked about HVAC in his first couple sessions. They use multiple protocols, which we started to talk about. Lighting, like Chase and Bo discussed. Wireless, you know, that's a big protocol within lighting. Shades and sunblind controls, like Russ and Michael previously discussed. On the industrial side, you have some protocols like Profinet, Ethernet IP, elevators in buildings. Those are being integrated more and more often now, which they always were kind of on the proprietary side. Metering, almost every project has some kind of meters in it. That's a Modbus TCP protocol most times. And even things like alternative energy. So now a lot of farms, instead of growing crops, they're leasing out their land to solar panels. And you see solar panels on buildings all the time. How do we integrate with those? Utilities, it's more common now for utilities to require real-time energy management, load shedding, peak usage. You need to be able to connect and integrate with utilities that are out there to take advantage of some of the programs that they have available and some of the features that they offer you. And then as we go back to buildings, you know, think about occupant experience. You know, we got to think about the safety of the occupants that are coming in. You know, do they have IAQ monitors? Is there a way to make sure that we're practicing social distancing? Can you take temperature of a person as they walk into a building? So integration is a big part of creating this open system. You want to be able to pull in all of these devices and different use cases into your BMS system. And then just kind of expanding on that, let's talk about enterprise, right? So connectivity in the enterprise. When you get all this rich data in a building, what do you do with it? If you talk to an IT manager, you have to ask them what their preferred database is to store this data. Is it Oracle? Is it IBM DB2? Is it MySQL? Is it a cloud that you're sending this data to? You know, these are conversations that we have to have with IT these days. Also CRMs, something like Salesforce or PeopleSoft. These are data-rich services that a lot of companies are looking to integrate into different systems. So think from an HR perspective with enterprise security, you know, you get a new employee and HR can set it up in their system that they have access to a building. So you have somebody walk in, they badge in, the lights in their office turn on, the space gets conditioned, elevator comes down to meet them. You know, it may have access to their schedule on Outlook so they know when they're going to a conference room to turn on the heating and air conditioning there. These are all segments of the building now that we need to consider when we're looking at connecting. So LDAP, single password or single sign-on. Again, this is something that's been in corporate for a long time. This is starting to extend to the BAS because if you think about it, with a lot of occupant experience apps, you don't want to give your occupant another login that they need to worry about. So integrating into that single sign-on with the rest of the systems in the building, you got to be able to do that. For financial, a CFO doesn't want to wait for the utility to send a bill. Most of the time, it's 30 days too late by the time they get it and have the ability to make any changes. So even on the financial side, they're looking for that real-time information and bringing in what the utilities have in order to make the right decisions to save money for the company. So these are all things that you got to think of from an enterprise perspective as we look over, you know, a collection of buildings. Then you also want to look at the user interface, right? So where's the system sending the data and how's it being displayed? There's so many rich types of displays now that are out there, and you want to make sure that they work on any type of device. I mean, at this point, we're all using mobile devices. This is where we're going to go to make any changes to a system, or again, with these occupant experience apps, you want to be able to have those rich graphics show up quickly and easily and be able to resize no matter what device you're looking for, whether it be a mobile app on a phone or a tablet, or even if you're still working off that computer in the boiler room in a basement of a building. How do those graphics and data resize, and how is the user experience going to be better? Then we want to look at open tool sets, right? So, you know, especially in retrofits, if you have two different systems, I mean, they could both be backnet systems, right? We'll call them A and B. But each system may have their own tool set that needs to be used. Is there a single tool set that you can use that will allow you to make changes as you add on to your system? Another thing is the accessibility to these tools. So can you purchase or download a tool set from the manufacturer? These are all important things that you want to keep in mind as you design your system. And then another piece, so is there a community? Can you get training from the manufacturer? Think of a facility manager at a hospital for an end user training. Number one, they may not have time to wait for a service provider to show up. So they want to have the knowledge and capability about their BMS system to be able to make changes. And, you know, additionally, are there different types of training? Is there virtual training? Is there e-learning? Now that we're all kind of working from home, classroom training, while it still exists and you know, socially distanced, that's great. Is there that ability to bring the classroom training into a virtual type of audience? These are all things that you need to think of. This could also be advantageous because a lot of times, again, think of a facility manager, they may not have the time to take a week out of work and sit down in a classroom and learn. So do you have that flexibility and availability in order to train in different ways? And you may be asking, why is that open? Because really a customer's idea of open is using multiple resources or multiple sources to get things done. So we're going to spend a little time talking about APIs and developers. So APIs, application programming interface, or how do I know how to connect your system? I'm going to give you an example, and we'll use Uber. Just even though it's kind of outside of our industry, it's something that we all know and understand. So Uber, when they first started, combined multiple API services offered by other companies. So the positioning was done by the operating system on the mobile device, so iOS or Android. Route calculation and maps, they were provided by MapKit and Google Maps. A program called Twilio sends their real-time text messages out to the customers when they're waiting for their rides. Payment was handled by Braintree. The receipt was sent by Mandrill. So all their services were hosted in the cloud with AWS. So really, why I mention all this is really combining the best of breed of these API services, and it allowed a startup like Uber, when they were a startup, to deliver really an excellent and an innovative user experience in a really short time. And then really what that did is it facilitated a rapid growth, right? So bringing that back to what we do in our environment. So, you know, there's a real power to have those open APIs. We're talking about IoT so often, and we're bringing in devices that are not part of the building traditionally. So as new devices, new programs, new applications are created, having that open API ability is an easy way to start bringing in and to even start developing different types of services and programs on your open system. So having that third-party developer building products on your system, that's another thing we want to talk about. Think about Apple and Android. Where would they be without the App Store or the Google Play Store? Developers build value, and really what it does is stimulates creativity and innovation. You can't depend on a single company to build out all the applications. While you will create great applications, it's really the people that are out in the field, it's the software developers that see different use cases and instances where they could build upon and create these apps that kind of make a greater system. So speaking of a developer community, you got to look at a community in general, right? So is there a large and active community of innovative developers, integrators, consultants, manufacturers, resellers, end users? On the Niagara community, you have over 30,000 Niagara certified professionals who have installed the nearly 1 million instances that are out there of Niagara, just kind of available to you out there in forums, asking questions, giving their opinion on applications. So as a consultant, you could even hop on there and you know, throw out an application like, I'm looking to design a building that does X, Y, Z, or I have a new technology that I'm thinking about adding to my open system design, and see if anybody jumps in and has that conversation. You know, the one nice thing about our industry is that we have a lot of good open communication between peers. So take advantage of that open community. I think it's something that makes the Niagara framework a very valuable tool. And then we want to talk about the business side of open. So for the end user, at the end of the day, you really want multiple options to purchase. So think about a cell phone provider, for example. You can go out, you can buy a cell phone from Verizon, AT&T, Sprint. You could buy the physical phone from those providers as well, or you can go on Amazon.com and buy a cell phone. You can go to Walmart and buy a cell phone. You can go to even a convenience store and get a cell phone these days. It's having all those options and you know, different types of technologies available to purchase. In the old BAS structure, we had a lot of exclusive territories, which is fine when service is good, But for the end user, what happens when you're not happy with the service you're getting? This kind of creates a market where vendors have to compete on service when you open up the business side of things. So as we start to wrap up today's session, we want to talk about the value for end users and service providers. So for end users, you know, to have an open system, what does it mean? It means the ability to choose the best of breed, the best of breed products and service providers. What it also does, and this is the big one, is it preserves their existing investment. So, you know, think of the word future-proofing a building, right? Whether they have a legacy system in place now, they can build upon that with an open system if you can integrate that in. Or if they're installing a new system today, if that system's open, they could take advantage of new technology and products without abandoning what they already have. So we got this term in the industry, right? Rip and replace. This is kind of getting away from that idea that you have to rip out what you have in order to get what's latest and greatest. You know, you want to take advantage of that new technology and all those new products that are coming out. And most importantly for the end user, it creates an environment where there's more competitive bidding and there's less lock-in. So if you have a system that everyone can jump on and quote, then you're bidding on service and less on the widget. So again, the value for service providers, what it's doing is it's changing the competitive landscape and the business model for them, because they need to develop new value props and value adds in order to be competitive with their neighbor. This will also give them the opportunity to differentiate and lead and become a solution consultant rather than just another guy on the block. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying about developers before. It makes them develop new skills, right? So systems nowadays are more technological. There's a greater sophistication for them to implement. I don't know a system integrator these days that doesn't have to interact with an IT department. A lot of system integrators have people on their staff, IT staff, working for them. So what it does, besides the technology, it creates a different sales approach. It's more customer focused and not product focused. So that kind of wraps up what I wanted to talk about today. I think we went over a lot of the pieces of an open system here and gave you a good idea of why you would want to specify an open system. So at this time, I think we'll open it up. We got a couple minutes left before 12:30. So Anoop, do we have some questions that we can take from the audience?
I don't see any questions as yet, but I think the main point here is that to cover the open aspects, not just the fact that because the general idea in the industry is that BACnet means open, but that's one step to being open. Yes, it is an open protocol. The rules are well defined. It's public, but what if the head end of the system is not open to you to go in and do something about it? What if you don't have the programming tools freely available to go in and change things when you need to, and not have to rely on a branch office or the manufacturer itself to come in every time and spend a lot of money to do such changes? Is that going to be financially feasible? So these are some of the things that I appreciate, that came out of what you just explained. Yeah, I think that sets the stage for tomorrow, and how to specify in more details on the platform itself, a little bit of the building blocks of the Niagara platform itself. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly what we'll cover tomorrow. So we'll get into kind of the meat and potatoes of what writing a spec looks like for Niagara Open System, and then again we'll dive into some of those case studies, because we really want to pull the value out of why these cases chose to go with an open system. So we'll go over all those things tomorrow and answer some questions around that. And yeah, it's a great opportunity today. So thanks for having us, and hopefully you pulled something from this. And if any questions pop up afterwards, we'll certainly answer those. But until then, we'll meet up tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Marcello. See you all tomorrow.
All right, thanks.
Bye.